Welcome to our webinar today. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Gareth Dyke and this presentation is entitled Journal Selection to Maximize Your Career Potential. This is a joint presentation brought to you by Diffusion Editing and Bentham Science Publishers. Once again, let me say, Journal Selection to Maximize Your Career Potential is the title of our presentation today, and Gareth Dyke is my name. We are waiting for a few minutes for colleagues to join us. I can see that there are many colleagues from all over the world joining us for our webinar presentation today. So thanks again for joining us. Thank you for coming. I have an academic background, including work at a number of UK and Irish universities, as well as editorial experience. Many years working for journals, editing journals and managing peer review. I also work as a freelance editor, managing the process, dealing with papers that get submitted to our editorial office and handling them, sending them out for review. You can find out more information about my background, about my expertise on this slide, on the links if you are interested. Once again, let me say that this is a joint presentation brought to you by Bentham Science and Diffusion Editing. What are we going to be talking about in this presentation? Well, you're probably asking yourself that very question. What will you gain from listening to this webinar presentation today? You will gain a number of insights into the publication process, some insights on global research trends around journal selection, and then we're going to talk about how you can select an effective journal for your research, how you can choose that best journal to target with your next research paper. Then, of course, we will talk about how you can expedite the publication process. We know from our experience editing and managing journals, Bentham Science publish a large number of journals and ebooks. We know from talking to our editors, talking to authors about the kinds of things that you can do as an author to speed up that publication process, how you can more effectively, more quickly get your work into those leading journals as quickly and efficiently as possible. So, insights into publication, insights on global research trends, effective journal selection, and tricks that you can use to expedite the process. Let's begin by saying that at the moment, we are interested in terms of journal selection in taking advantage of the huge changes we are currently seeing in the publishing industry. We are experiencing a paradigm shift at the moment in academic publishing. I'm going to talk a little bit about that. Some recent changes that we've seen to the publishing industry as a result of the current global pandemic. So what that means for journal policies, what that means for peer review, what that might mean for publication speed in order that you can be as effective as possible. How does this relate to journal selection? Well, all of these issues are current in the publishing industry. So you, as an effective academic author, to make yourself more efficient, you need to be aware of these changes so that you can select a journal that's going to work effectively for your next publication. So it's very important to be aware of these kinds of publishing insights. Now, what's happening at journals around the world is that publishers, including Bentham Science, are making lots of content more freely available and freely reusable online. So, for example, content in these publishers that's related to COVID-19 is being made available freely online. And it's the same for Bentham Science. Related articles on infectious diseases, computational epidemiology, and pandemics are now free to read. So we can, as authors, take advantage of these kinds of changes in the publishing industry in order to more effectively target our papers to the best journals. Which publishers are allowing content free online? Which publishers are publishing open access? And let me advise you that Bentham Science publishers are one of the leading open access publishers out there at the moment. So we are able to give you online resources, give you access to content, and provide you with expedited fast track peer review. In certain areas, this is certainly important if you are targeting your work to particular journals. So let's have a think about this in some more detail, how you can take advantage of the kinds of changes that we're seeing in the publishing industry as a result of the current pandemic. Indeed, now journals are less in the driving seat in this process than they were before the pandemic. Certainly, the average time from submission to publication was around 90 days pre-COVID-19. Now, of course, it's much, much faster. People are moving much more towards open access outlets for their publications, and authors are in control. Prior to the pandemic, of course, authors were often submitting blind. Peer review was requiring a number of different colleagues, and most authors were not taking advantage of the kind of training that, of course, companies like ours can provide to enable them to more effectively communicate with editors, talk to journals, and get their work much more effectively published in those leading international journals. So we are helping, we are providing expedited options for peer review, often providing peer review in-house, and also access to preprint service. Changes to publication speed across the industry have been dramatic. For example, the journal Clinical Ophthalmology, just one extreme example that I'm going to talk about in this webinar, it's halved its review times for some papers. We've seen huge increases in the number of articles submitted to journals across this period of time since March, April of 2020. And so also submission to first review in lots of cases is also falling. Across the industry now, it's around 2.5 weeks, something like that. So you can target your research to leading international journals. You can also target the work that you do into Bentham Science journals and access areas in terms of global research trends where you may be shining as a researcher. And here are some areas that we've identified from global research trends in 2019 and 2020 that are on the up in terms of research publishing, in terms of trends across the industry. These are areas that many governments around the world are selecting, are targeting for preferential funding as we move forward into the post-pandemic era. Drug development, aging, synthetic biology, bacterial resistant genes, T-cell lines with tumor immunity. These are all areas in which you as researchers can access content and more effectively target your research into those leading international journals. How does target journal selection work? Moving on to talk about this for a moment, many successful academics around the world think to themselves, I never start to write until I've decided on my target journal. How can you do this? The second main topic of our presentation today, it's about targeting, determining which journals are going to be the right journals for your next publication. I never start to write until I've decided on that target journal. Why? Every journal is different. They have different scopes, different audiences, different lengths. You might be writing a full article, an original article. You might be writing a letter or a rapid communication. You're going to self-evaluate. So how can you do this effectively? Most effectively by writing to editors, by talking to other people, by talking to your colleagues. Many, if not most, academic authors make submissions to journals blind. They still do this. They don't reach out. They don't talk to editors prior to submission. And that can be a big mistake. If you talk to an editor, if you make those pre-submission inquiries before going in and hitting that submit button, you can give your papers a much higher chance of eventual acceptance in your target journal. So why not make a list of the kinds of journals you would like to see your research published in, 5 or 10 journals from across your subject area, which you then rank by impact factor and then target them. Write pre-submission inquiries to editors. Leading journals, Nature, Science, those big international journals with the high impact factors, they want you to do this anyway. They ask you to do this anyway. They won't just take submissions. They require, in many cases, authors to make pre-submission inquiries before putting in the full submission so that editors can decide, is this going to be something that's appropriate, that's interesting for the journal readership? So talk to people, talk to colleagues, make pre-submission inquiries, target your journal before you get started on the writing process.